anecdotes around it. So I'm not particular to any team. I mean, I will follow the Mets because they are an interesting story. They have an interesting history. It's sort of the sad sack of New York City, the second cousins, the ugly stepchild of New York. And I happen to live about 20 minutes away from Citi Field as opposed to an hour and a quarter from Yankee Stadium, and I prefer Citi Field to Yankee Stadium for watching a game. So if you pin me down, I'm probably a Mets fan, but generally speaking, I will watch baseball everywhere it's played, whether it's Japanese or the World Baseball Classic or college, wherever it's played, I'm probably going to be interested in it.
Well, I mean, the Mets are the Giants' cousins, or how I always look at it. So they share some similarities too. So I'm okay with that. I'll let the broadcast crew endorsement slide. That's fine. They're a great crew. We have Kruk and Kipe, so obviously Giants fans are
they are.
Biased. We have John Miller and Dave Fleming. Anyway, my favorite bit of listening to the Mets booth is always Keith Hernandez eschewing any analysis and simply grunting or groaning in reaction to a play. Or it was Ron Darling. You know what? It's both of them because Keith Hernandez grunts, but Ron Darling will do it in the playoffs for TBS where he'll just make a sound. I'm like, great.
Well, I like that they have the ability and approval of their employers to go and criticize the play, and say, the guy should have cut the ball off. He should have done this. He was playing too close. It's nice to see that they're not homers and they will call out their own team, as it were, for shoddy play or just a weird circumstance that comes up in the game.
And they also get a Seinfeld night every year, which is incredibly
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And they do that kids booth thing as well, I believe. I think they're the only ones that do it, and it's good. So, all right. Well, I mean, this is kind of relevant. It's on topic. The Mets just yesterday restructured Yoenis Cespedes' deal. So, based on his mysterious injury that has essentially put his baseball career on hiatus, that seems fair, right?
I think it's fair, and I think it's akin to what befell some of the characters on the Simpsons Homer at the Plate episode.
Did he drink too much?
He either fell in a well, or he went through the fun house, or he drank the tonic. Something happened to him that we can't really explain.
I want to put a pause in the Simpsons talk for a little bit because you're also one of the biggest Simpsons fans on baseball Twitter, so which is hard to be in the top percentile of, but you are definitely but yeah, so the Mets basically are going to save in terms of a guarantee, it looks like about $20 million this year. So I have 3 questions I'm asking all the guests. That's the, for those listening, that's the setup here. And you don't have to get too elaborate with your answer. You can also say pass, which I did not give Grant Brisbee that opportunity. But okay, so what is financial flexibility?
Financial flexibility is having enough between what you are spending and what you are budgeting. I mean, that sounds very sterile, but the Mets say they have no financial flexibility, but that's only because they really don't want to go above the luxury tax threshold. And so it's an artificial construct in their case, but financial flexibility means being able to add players throughout the year or go after a contract that might be expiring, but that might put you over the luxury tax threshold. Flexibility is just it's an economic tool that teams should employ so that they're not hamstrung. Like let's put it this way: Miguel Cabrera's contract with the Tigers strangles them in terms of flexibility, or it did until they started offloading other contracts. So he's still on the payroll for another, I think, 3 or 4 years at like $30 million. That hinders financial flexibility. And so those kind of contracts are when you lay out that kind of money that far into the future, that hinders financial flexibility in my view.
All right. What is player value?
Well, player value, we toss around the concept of wins above replacement WAR, and player value can be assigned based on how many wins above replacement compared to their salary. We can assess a player value as to something non-financial, like their ability to keep the clubhouse together. That's not a financial aspect. That's a team building aspect. There are great teammates. There are great leaders on the field. And then there are players who are disruptive, the Milton Bradleys of the world who sow discord in every clubhouse they go through. So the value of a player can be ascribed in various ways. It can be financial. And you could be getting a better bang for your buck. That's why teams are focused on having cost-controlled players, pre-arb players of particular have a particular value to them, that they're cost-controlled. They're going to go through arbitration, and then they'll hit free agency, and then the sky will start falling. But the value of the player is basically what does he give you on the field? What can he give you off the field? Does he put people in the seats? Do people come to see him, buy his jerseys? Get memorabilia with his name on it. So there's various ways of ascribing value to the players that goes beyond just the pure salary of the player.
Speaking of which, you mentioned in there Brilton Madley.
You're going to spoonerize the entire show, aren't you?
Yes. That's what the transcript will be, just every name. Yeah, well, the reason why I'm asking that's such a thorough answer, and that's exactly why I'm asking the question. I feel that a lot of the execs in baseball and the writers as a result are just throwing these terms around, and they do mean different things based on who's saying it, for sure. That's a reality. And I think what I'm trying to get is everyone who's saying it has their own agenda, but everyone listening to it might actually have the same idea of what it means. And so that gap is what I'm starting to feel some tension over. When the Pirates talk about payroll flexibility, it's not the same thing as the Mets. It's not the same thing as the A's.
Right.
Well, that might be closer in their case. But so then my last question is kind of around all that, because one of the things you hear about is we want to build a sustainable winner. We want to build a sustainable winner. And I'm not sure I know what that means. So the question I'm phrasing, which again you can pass, is that the Giants were, when Brian Sabian ran the Giants, they had 4 losing seasons out of 20. That's it. So would that be considered a sustainable winner?
Well, there is the thought that, if you win titles, you are a winner. And if you happen to win 85 games but don't make the playoffs, it's all relative. If you go through...
Yes, yeah.
If you go through 16 out of 20 seasons with a winning record, that seems to define yourself as a winning franchise. If you're the Yankees and you expect to be in the playoffs every year, and you expect to be in the World Series and win championships every year, and you don't make the playoffs, or you lose in the first round, or you lose in the wild card, from the River Avenue offices of Yankee Stadium, that's not a winning season. And for the Yankees, they've imparted upon their fan base, we expect to compete every year. We expect 90-plus wins and playoff bursts and things of that nature. That's their definition of winning. And so for other teams, I don't know, the sustainability of a winner is so much in line with where the players are in terms of their careers. If you're doing what the Astros did and basically tearing apart your team down to its bare bones and going after first-round draft picks for 3 consecutive years with number 1 picks, and you're out front about it, they didn't make any bones about it. They were tanking, and they let their fans know there is a method to the madness here. We are tearing it apart so that we can build something that is sustainable. And so, as we see, the cheating scandal notwithstanding, they have built a successful short-term going towards long-term winner, but they had to go through a period of significant losses. And now they're coming up and saying, well, wait a minute, now we're bumping up against a payroll that we're not comfortable with. We may have to trade Carlos Correa.
Right.
So it's, you get to a certain point where these with your assets, where you scout them, you sign them you draft them, you sign them to a contract, you put them through the minor leagues, you go through arbitration with them, they might become stars, and then they go into free agency if you don't sign them long term, and then you have to repeat the process all over with a new set of people. That's why it's so hard to keep a team together for multiple years, because they're all in different, for the large portion of Major League Baseball, the team's composition is in such different states. Some of them are reaching arbitration. Some of them are reaching free agency. Some are rookies. Like, look at what the Braves have done. They have Acuna and who's the other one that they signed long term?
Albies?
Albies, yes. And then they went out and they signed Josh Donaldson for 1 year, and it worked out great. Now they need to go and find a replacement for Donaldson, but they didn't lock themselves into a long-term deal, because they have the flexibility now. They know what their payroll is going to be with Albies and with Acuna, and they can build off of that.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with it is relative for every team. So let's take a moment and just grumble about the Yankees never really having to go down for very long. They had one, it wasn't even a losing season. They won 84 games and people were bummed, and then they were good the next year. And
I think the stat is they have not had a losing season since 1992.
Okay, that's a sustainable winner.
That's a sustainable winner, but if you look at Mr. Steinbrenner's crew, Randy Levine and the suits in River Avenue, they have different goals. They have different definitions for winning, and it's they have one of the highest payrolls. They have the average seat cost is exorbitant, even for New York City. And they built this monstrosity of a stadium to generate this revenue, and they have their own regional sports network, and so it's a monster.
It definitely is, but I don't have you for very much longer, and I need to get this in. We got to do our We got to do our favorite Simpsons episodes before we sign off.
Oh my!
Yeah. Do you not have a top 5 readily available?
Okay, the Moneyball episode, because it gave me my profile picture on Twitter.
Yes.
Homer at the bat has to be in there also.
Yeah.
The 32 short films about Springfield.
Nice. Do you have a favorite within that one?
Yes, it has to be the when Skinner